Hi, I'm Max Pollock from Eightfold Property, and I'm here today to talk about the additional costs to look out for when taking a commercial property. So when taking a commercial property, there are obviously the obvious costs such as the purchase price or the rent that you're going to pay. Potential tenants and purchasers should also make allowance for the additional costs that they're going to need to pay for and look out for when taking a commercial property. First of all, I would say that there should be a provision that's made for legal costs. Coming in as a tenant or a purchaser, you will have your own legal costs to pay. In addition to that, you will also, in some instances, need to make a contribution towards the landlord or the outgoing tenant's costs as well, or the vendor in some instances. This is good to sort of make provision for these costs so that it doesn't come as a shock down the line. Another thing to sort of keep an eye out for is VAT, both in terms of costs that you have to pay, such as legal costs, where there will be VAT on top of those, but also certain properties where you get some properties where they are elected for VAT. Where a property is elected for VAT, in some instances you will also need to be paying VAT on top of the rental element and the service charge element, or if you're purchasing a property and it's got vacant possession, you would also need to pay VAT on the purchase price. VAT comes as a shock to certain parties and plays more of a prominent role with certain businesses. For instance, if you fall below the VAT threshold, it makes a bigger impact to your business, and also a lot of medical operators or financial advisors aren't VAT elected, and as such can't claim the VAT element back if they have a property where VAT is payable on the rental and service charge elements. So this is a really important thing to factor in when you're looking at a property, because it can impact your business and your bottom line quite severely. Service charge, another big sort of factor to consider when you're taking a property. Most properties now will have a service charge element sort of within them, apart from standalone properties. The service charge is the costs that the landlord or the managing agent will be putting in place to maintain the property. Service charge is not for profit, not for gain, but obviously again an important cost to sort of factor in, as this can add sort of quite a chunky percentage onto the base rent that you're initially looking at. So it's always a good idea to ask the agent if they know what the service charge is or can find that out, so that you can budget accordingly. Stamp duty is another cost to consider. When you're purchasing a property, it's more accepted and expected by parties. However, many people don't realise that there is also stamp duty to pay when you can take a leasehold property. This is generally when the accumulative rent is over £150,000 for the duration of the lease term. So there is benefits to parties taking shorter leases, in most instances of sort of perhaps say 5 years and below, because the accumulative rental is less likely to go over the threshold there, and there can be savings to be made in respect to the stamp duty. Business rates, another factor to consider. What we generally see at the moment is the strong demand for properties where the rateable value falls below the small business rate threshold, and tenants can benefit from 100% small business rate relief discount. This is generally sort of below 12,000 where they'll say the full discount, and there's some discount below 15,000. When you go above that level, you will generally pay a percentage which is approximately sort of 50% of the rateable value. And again is a cost that's very important that you should make sure you're aware of before taking the property, as this can obviously impact your business model quite significantly. Survey costs. Surveys are quite an important thing to consider when taking a property, so that you know that the property that you're taking isn't suffering from major defects, or if it is, that you can sort of accommodate those accordingly within your budgets. However, you should also make provision in your budget to cover the cost of the survey. The cost of the survey will depend obviously on the size of the property, and there's different types of survey that you can have, but if you need assistance with that, we're happy to sort of point you in the direction of surveyors and the different services they offer to accommodate you. Searches are something that your solicitor will carry out to make sure that you have clear title on a property when you're taking it. When your solicitor gives you a quote for fees, quite often the searches will be in addition to this, and again it's something that you should make provision for, where your legal fees may be slightly more than initially anticipated. So again, search is very important, that you make provision for those in your budget. Finally, acquisition costs. In some instances, parties will use an acquiring agent to act on their behalf. This is a service that we carry out, and many of our clients find it particularly useful. This is where sort of an agent will use their experience, connections and knowledge in the market to find a property on behalf of the tenant, and also negotiate terms on their behalf and make sure that their client's getting the best deal. So acquisition fees, again, something to budget for if you want to sort of use that service to get the best deal for you, which can benefit you in the long term. These are the costs that most people will need to consider when taking a commercial property. So before making an offer, we'd suggest that you evaluate what your costs are so that you can make sure that this all falls within your budget. I'm Max Pollock, Eightfold Property. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.